Subcommittee. Normally, I like to wait until there are a few more members. However, we're going to have such a crazy day starting at 10 o'clock. I'd like to get as much business done as quickly as possible. So with that, I'd like to announce that item number 3, AB 200, Assembly Member Hayashi, and item number 6, AB 401, Assembly Member Amiano, have been pulled at the request of the authors. Also, item number 7, AB 611, item number 8, AB 614, item number 9, AB 668, and item number 13, AB 1029 are on consent. So with that, let us begin as a subcommittee. Assembly Member Fuentes, welcome.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members. Today I'm presenting before you Assembly Bill 5, but before I begin with my presentation, I would like to accept the amendments referenced in the committee's analysis and thank the staff for identifying those for us. This measure deals with the evaluation of teachers, and we know that research has consistently identified that the quality of a teacher is the single most important factor in improving student achievement. Here in California, we lack a consistent or comprehensive system to evaluate our biggest assets to our education system, our teachers. The media has framed this conversation as a discussion between good teachers versus bad teachers, and how do school districts get rid of the really bad teachers. I don't agree with that fundamental premise or characterization. I believe that we must pivot and change the conversation to be about supporting all teachers and identifying their effectiveness, regardless if they are new or a veteran teacher. But we also need to create a rigorous, data-driven system that does that evaluation, that utilizes data to identify how to inform instruction in the classroom. This is a contentious issue nationwide. On one extreme, we have the state of Florida, which recently adopted teacher evaluation systems that rely entirely on one methodology and student test data. On the other extreme, we have the status quo, the Stoll Act, for example, and those who believe that there are no changes that are necessary to that current evaluation system. I believe that there must be a middle ground which acknowledges the value that comes with the teacher having experience, but doesn't ignore the value of data in informing instruction and improving student performance. We today use experience or time and tenure as a proxy for effectiveness, and I think this bill tries to attempt to change that. This bill, as a first step, would try to forge that compromise. The bill details the foundation for a comprehensive teacher evaluation system and establishes a mechanism for the continuous improvement of teachers. This bill would establish an evaluation system once the state repays the severe revenue limit cuts it has made to schools. That would be the trigger before this could take effect. The new evaluation system would have 4 main components. The first being that the new system is based on the California standards for the teaching profession. The second, it would require formative and summative data to be used to inform teaching practice. It would require pupil academic growth based on multiple measures to be part of the teacher evaluation. And finally, it would require multiple observations to be conducted by trained evaluators. Consistent with current law under the Stoll Act, school districts must collectively bargain their teacher evaluation process with their representative bargaining units. The difference in this bill is that specific components are identified in this measure and must be part of the teacher evaluation and must be bargained. This bill is not designed to punish teachers. Instead, it establishes a system to evaluate all teachers in a fair and transparent manner with the goal of providing continuous improvement while focusing on improving student achievement. Now, Mr. Chair, I know there are many interested members in your committee who have looked at these various areas, and I, as I've mentioned to you privately and happy to do so now, would be happy to work with any and all members on both sides of the aisle to try to address this very important gap. And with that, I've got witnesses in support and urge an aye vote.
Yeah, we'll get back to that, but let's hear first from the witnesses in support and then in opposition, then bring it back behind the rail. Witnesses in support.
Monique Ramos on behalf of State Superintendent Tom Torlison. California California needs a statewide teacher quality system to ensure that teachers are well trained and supported throughout their careers. Personnel decisions need to be guided by a fair and rigorous evaluation system, from initial licensing through designation of mentor and teacher leaders. These systems must support continuous improvement for individual teachers as well as the profession as a whole, ensuring that all teachers who are retained and tenured can effectively support student learning. The superintendent believes it is vital that policymakers on the state and local level examine the quality of our teacher evaluation system in the context of preparation, support, and evaluation. Locally designed teacher evaluation systems should be part of a comprehensive system centered around professional teaching standards, which are linked to student standards, curriculum, and assessments. These should create a seamless relationship between the teacher education, licensure, ongoing evaluations, and professional development. That is why Superintendent Torlakson supports AB 5. The superintendent would like to thank Assemblymember Fuentes for his leadership on this complex issue and looks forward to continuing to work with him on this issue.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support?
Laura Preston with the Association of California School Administrators. We don't have an official support position, but I'm here to encourage that this committee move the bill forward. ACSA has taken the issue of teacher evaluation very seriously and created a task force to look into what should be components of an evaluation mechanism as things move forward, especially with the ESEA reauthorization sometime in the future in Washington, D.C. We know that the feds are going to require evaluations and components of those evaluations. California, being a leader on these issues, should be able to have in place an evaluation system that the rest of the nation can look to as a model. And so we want to encourage the committee to move this forward. Assemblymember Fuentes and his staff have included much of the work that our task force has been working on. We still have some ways to go. We would like to continue to work on that and encourage the committee to vote, and I vote. Thanks.
Other witnesses in support?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Liz Guillen with Public Advocates on behalf of community organizations in the Campaign for Quality Education and other parent and student organizations. We have supported the process and the bill as it's moved along. Parents and students definitely are not happy with the status quo. However, they don't want to see the extreme models that have been proposed and enacted in other places around the country where teachers are bashed based on standardized test scores. So a place in the middle is where students and parents are interested, at least the ones we work with. Of importance is an involvement as stakeholders in the process. So we are very happy with the authors' commitment to continue looking at that issue so that parents and students are stakeholders in the process, that language is there, and that their input is part of the feedback that can be used in evaluating teachers. Thank you.
Other witnesses in support? Try to be brief.
Yes, we're in the tweener category. So Edgar Salzueta on behalf of Los Angeles Unified School District. First of all, we thank Assemblymember Fuentes. He's been working at this for now, I think, more than a year, and obviously has taken a great interest in what's happening in Los Angeles. We don't have a formal position today. We do have some few issues / concerns. Our superintendent, Daisy, has had conversations with the assembly members, so we know we will work on these issues moving forward. Very briefly, let me just highlight a couple of them. We're somewhat concerned about the timeline. We know as the bill has amended that it will not go into effect until the revenue limit deficit is paid off. One thing we would at least encourage is maybe putting a date into statute where we could at least reevaluate that. And just our point there is that everybody seems to agree that the system as it is today is broken. And if it is broken, we shouldn't just put it out there to a date in the unforeseeable future when we were going to implement this new system. So we acknowledge the fiscal difficulties, but maybe put something to reevaluate that. There's some issues on the scope of bargaining. We're taking a close look, working with the assembly member, just to see if the bill expands anything in current law that right now doesn't have to be bargained, that now may have to be bargained, that may make things a little bit more problematic. We continue to look at those issues. We want to ensure that anything that is put into statute protects our right to have both scheduled and unscheduled observations of our teachers. So we look forward to working on those issues. And like Ms. Guillen, we continue to be a big proponent of that stakeholder feedback in some respects should be included in the overall process. So we thank again Mr. Fuentes for his work and look forward to working with him and the committee on these issues. Thank you.
Other witnesses in support?
Sylvia
Or tweeners?
Yes, Sylvia Solisha on behalf of Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa's office. We also do not have an official position, and while we do have several areas of agreement with Assemblymember Fuentes on the bill, we do have a couple of items of concern, of great concern to us in the bill. Specifically, we would like to see a timeline as iterated by Mr. Sesweta from LA Unified. We also are concerned with the language that requires evaluation systems to be part of the collective bargaining process, and we also look for further exploration of that. We would like to see language that requires districts to use the student growth data in the teacher evaluations. And we would also like to see the requirement that teachers be evaluated annually and make the frequency and timing at the discretion of the district. So we look forward to continue to work with the Assembly member and his staff and the committee on these issues as the bill moves forward. Thank you.
Other witnesses?
Not in support, Mr. Chairman.
But you're sitting there, though.
Opposed unless amended.
How about oppose and oppose unless amended? Let's go.
Mr. Chairman and members, Brian Rivas on behalf of the California School Boards Association. I want to thank Mr. Fuentes for the stakeholder process. It's really been extraordinary. A lot of members have staff conduct stakeholder meetings, but Mr. Fuentes has attended each of them personally. We think the framework that he's come up with in this bill is a pretty good one and would provide for better teacher evaluations. Our concerns and the rationale for the oppose unless amended have to do with cost and implementation. First off, as Mr. Fuentes pointed out, the bill would take effect when the deficit factor on revenue limits is reduced to zero. We think that gets us part of the way there. It doesn't get us all of the way there. The reason is that the revenue limit is the level of funding provided that is necessary to deliver the current program. It's not the level of funding that indicates when schools are able to undertake costly new mandates or implement new mandates. We'd like to see the bill amended to also say that the bill takes effect when the state pays for unfunded mandates on schools and school districts and county offices of education. Secondly, we do have a concern about the bargaining aspect of this. The bill says that the system will be negotiated locally pursuant to existing law. We think that opens up questions about whether or not the scope of bargaining is actually being expanded. And frankly, I think we have questions about the ability of a district to negotiate effective elements of a system while it's negotiating everything else that fall within terms and conditions of employment. We'd like to see something a little more narrow, perhaps. The system will be implemented with mutual agreement separately from the rest of the terms and conditions of employment, or something a little more narrow that clarifies that the evaluation system will be separate from everything else. So for those reasons, we're opposed unless amended.
Other witnesses in opposition?
Good morning. My name is Patricia Rucker, and I'm here representing the California Teachers Association. CTA submitted to Mr. Fuentes a lengthy letter explaining the reasons and concerns for our current position on the bill. We really have a disapproved position on the bill, and we are seeking some very specific amendments. And before I address the very specific amendments, I do want to talk about the issue of collective bargaining. The current law does establish that teacher evaluation is a mandatory subject of bargaining. Amendments that would suggest or propose narrowing the scope of bargaining so that it's a meet and confer rather than a mandatory subject of bargaining would create great concern for the California Teachers Association. From the day the Stoll Act was enacted in 1972, evaluation has always been bargained at the table with all the other subjects and issues of employment. We recognize that this is a new system, that there are a lot of issues to be discussed. It was a new system in 1972 as well. And we understand that the system as it currently exists is flawed, and there are a lot of issues and gaps that should be addressed. Our opposition to the bill, our disapproved position to the bill, is we still feel, for the reasons that have been raised about issues of collective bargaining and some of the other issues, that it does not address all of the gaps that still remain in the STAHL Act. The STAHL Act did require and establish some standards for principal evaluation. This bill, by sunsetting significant portions of the STAHL, basically eliminates both the standard and the objective requirement for districts to have policies and outline standards for how they will evaluate administrators. As the anchor for implementing this new system, without a successful evaluation policy and a process for the oversight and monitoring of those who will be the most responsible for the implementation of this new system, it is a difficulty for CTA to understand why the bill would not address principal evaluation. At the same time, I've had a lot of conversations with Mr. Fuentes, and I do agree he has been very diligent in meeting directly with stakeholders. I understand his concern about expanding the scope of the bill to include principal evaluation, and he believes that another bill would be a better vehicle. But I need to remind this panel, the STAHL has been in place for almost 40 years, and it's been amended 4 different times. And each time there's been an amendment, we have asked for consideration to expand and further refine state policies concerning administrator evaluation, and it has not happened. We feel without doing the work to include some objective standard and process for assuring that administrators who implement this new system are appropriately trained and evaluated to make sure that there's a high fidelity of implementation, we are replacing one flawed system with another. I saw the staff's amendments concerning calibration. I truly appreciate that. In the letter CTA submitted, we provided a great deal of information about the purpose and the needs for calibration. So I appreciate and I'm very glad to know that that issue is going to be considered and added to the bill. But finally and most importantly, and I realize this is a high dollar item, training is also going to be important. When the state implemented peer assistance and review, there was a massive outlay up front of funding to provide training, not only for administrators, but at every level of the implementation for this process. Because the bill not only allows administrators and supervisors, but also non-supervisory personnel to be involved in teacher evaluation, training becomes very, very important. And I do recognize the committee's pressure about the issues concerning the cost of training, but this is something that should be, the recommendation for training should be considered. And the ways that districts implement the training over the scope of implementation and the issues of scaling up can be dealt with locally. But again, if we fail to consider how to train and provide full fidelity of implementation through that training, we are again replacing one flawed system with another. I do thank you for the time you've given me to fully explain our concerns, and I do appreciate again the work that Mr. Fuentes and Kimberly has done in having communications with us about the bill.
Thank you. Other witnesses in opposition? Let's come back now behind. Assembly member, I think that, typically this committee only sets out one bill on a subject, as Senator Huff knows. But I requested that there are many things in this bill that really touch on issues that were raised by Senator Lieu and Senator Huff. And I'm very serious that we need to work, you need to work together with these. I think it's kind of interesting that we only have before us one, in our analysis as of up to 2 days ago, only one person in support and no opposition. But what we saw today was a range of people who raised a number of issues, from collective bargaining, the timeline, what kinds of evaluations in these multiple measures, whether we have student growth, how we deal with evaluation of administrators, the training that's going to take place. There are lots of issues that are still out there. So what I'm saying is I'm supportive of this bill, moving this bill forward. This bill will not come to the floor of the California State Senate without coming back before this committee. There are lots of changes, things that you need to continue to work on with members. So I will say that if we move this bill out, which I hope we do, that you continue to work with Senator Lieu, Senator Huff, some of the both supporters and opposition, to really have something. This is a major, major issue that you're undertaking. We think you're on the right step. You're moving in the right direction. It is certainly more fully cooked in many ways than what we had come out of the Senate before, but it's not totally ready yet, and we want to see that before we bring this to the floor. So I'm giving it a support. I think it's great. But I think there's more work to be done, a lot more work to be done before we complete this. And I'm going to say to my members, if you vote yes to move this bill forward, as we've been asked by people who are opposed unless amended, support, if amended, they want to continue working on this bill. And that's really where I am. I'm willing to support that, but there's a lot of issues that are still hanging out there. Senator Huff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Fuentes, according to the Legislative Analyst's Office, in a 10-year period, only 100 dismissal hearings were heard in the entire state of California, which includes unsatisfactory performance. It's nearly impossible to remove a teacher, to exit a teacher, even if they're the worst performers. State law forbids schools from using evaluations.
Senator, excuse me, just one second. We have a quorum and we may never get one again.
I was right in the middle of a great thought.
I know. Hold that thought. All you have to do is say here and think about the thought. Please call.
Lowenthal?
Here.
Lowenthal here. Runner? Alquist? Blakesley?
Here.
Blakesley here. Hancock? Huff?
Here.
Huff here. Lou? Here. Lou here. Price? Here. Price here. Smidian? Vargas? Here. Vargas here. You have a quorum.
Hancock.
Hancock here. Okay.
Return to that great thought.
Thank you. So state law forbids us from using evaluations to even be in consideration of who we keep, who we get rid of, and you're looking at reform seriously. The question is, if we can't even do that basic analysis in trying to figure out who are the best teachers to retain on critical staffing decisions, then what's the point of this legislation?
So thank you for the question. I think, this committee has seen an awful lot, including your bill, Senator, in terms of sort of employment issues, largely because of the terrible economic circumstances we find ourselves in. So it's really begged a very good conversation about how do we sort of sort out the good teachers from the bad teachers. Now, you may have missed my opening statement here. I think that we've put too much of an emphasis on looking for bad teachers and reveling the good teachers.
We have no emphasis on it.
Well, I would disagree. I think that there's been an awful lot of attention put on those two, if you would imagine a bell curve for a second, those two ends of the curve. What this bill aims to do is a couple of things. The first is look at the rest of that 95% in the center there, because there are the really bad teachers that we read about and the really great teachers that we read about in Herald, but there isn't sort of the attention to the teachers in the middle that may need additional help, support, etc. So the goal of, I think, putting together an evaluation system other than the STOLAC, something that would endeavor to do something more than just give you a satisfactory or unsatisfactory rating, but actually give you real-time feedback about your performance, your effectiveness, and take all those considerations. I think once you've built that module, if you wanted to, another author could take a look at and link at that information to personnel matters if they wanted to. They could look at that information and link it to professional development if they wanted to. They could look at that and look at school finance distribution and how that would work. What I'm getting at is what is necessitated here is a basic system that gives you real metrics, so then you can make these very important determinations. And this is what the bill tries to do. It does not aim to try to increase dismissal hearings or punish teachers. It's a system that I think is absolutely wanting for us to understand what is it that we have in our inventory today.
It appears to me you're building a V8 without any drivetrain to the wheels, and so I'm not sure it gets us where we need to go. In addition, you have you've got to pay off $8 billion or more of deferrals or whatever that is before it kicks in. What would be wrong with amending this to make it permissive now?
So I think you heard from the testimony two very interesting positions. You had both of which weren't in absolute support of the bill. The Los Angeles Unified School District, for example, says, give us this tool today irrespective of the cost. And then you have the school board association saying, hey, wait a second, you all owe us an awful lot. Pay that off first before you implement a mandate. What we tried to do was split the difference there and put a trigger in there that was acknowledging the fiscal situation that we're in, yet not so far away where this evaluation system wouldn't have a chance. So I'm absolutely open to other ideas on how to tickle this system to begin, but it seemed like the sort of responsible way of beginning a new mandate on schools.
Well, you and I have participated in a panel talking about our different measures, but I certainly don't want to blame teachers for things. I believe the average rank and file teacher wants a culture of excellence, and they believe in that strongly. But then we have a union that is bound by their laws to protect the lowest performing ones. And so it blurs the difference between those that are absolutely high achieving, those that are committed to excellence, to learning, and protecting those that are not. And the data speaks for itself. If you only got 110 years with as many teachers as we have in this state, something's broken with our evaluation system. And I hope anything we do as a legislature hits at that, even if only an advisory level. And for Mrs. Rucker, maybe you'd like my bill, CTA would, because I actually did have principal evaluation in there, because I think that's an important component of it also. It's a whole system that has to be held accountable, but I don't see your bill hitting that, and I agree, although probably to a stronger degree, with the chair. I'm not going to vote against it, but I will abstain today and hope we can work on this and make it a tighter bill.
Just on the note about the calibration, administrator evaluations, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, it's what we've attempted to do, and I didn't realize it would take a year's time to do, is bring stakeholders together and just try to develop, as you said, that engine that could serve as evaluation system. Now what needs to be hooked into it are the other components. But I do believe that before you can sort of roll the vehicle out, you're going to have to get this part correct. We have to come to some sort of agreement on the policy on what the evaluation system ought to look like. After that, I think, and maybe naively, that things get fairly simple. I mean, if we find ourselves in a position where we're dealing with riffing teachers some more, then now you've got a system of metrics there that should be able to at least inform in an initial way how to deal with that versus what we do today, which is, this proxy for experience and effectiveness being tenure. Now, I'm not saying that the bill is intended to do that today, but if you have this additional information set, and I wish that Senator Simitian were here, because I also attended a very good informational sort of briefing, all-day seminar with him on the importance of utilizing data. What we're not doing enough is using the data that's out there. It's being used in an informal way by districts, but there needs to be, I think, a very specific way for us to use it so that we can make these very important decisions that you're alluding to. But I'm still happy to continue working with you to see if there's ways that we can make this satisfactory to you, but it's very difficult, as you well know.
Thank you, Chair. I share virtually every sentiment that was expressed by Senator Huff with regard to the reservations. And also, I'm sure folks know that the analysis I have before us urges an oppose, or at least predicts an oppose. But I find the author's arguments pretty compelling, that we're not going to arrive at some large, grand, unified solution if we don't start putting the pieces of this together. And this may be all the more we can achieve in this committee at this moment to keep the conversation going. And I also wanted to really echo some of the statements from the witness. I believe it was from the mayor's office, Villaraigosa's office. I thought they were quite insightful. So whereas I have, I think, all the reservations and all the concerns, having worked with this author at great length on other legislation and knowing how consistently he gets to pretty darn good answers, I'd like to support the bill and urge that he take to heart some of those comments and see if we can't move forward on a bipartisan basis.
I just wanted that I've already told the author, and I will support the bill moving forward today, that there are lots of issues still unresolved, and that this bill will be back in this committee. If it moves forward, it will not go to the floor of the Senate without coming back to this committee. Any other? Senator Hancock.
Yes. I wanted to clarify that because I actually agree very much with the comments of Mr. Blakesley, which are that it's a conversation that needs to move forward, and we need to fine-tune this in many ways. I am troubled because I know there's some issues about whether there actually has been collaboration between the two houses on this. Particularly Senator Liu and Senator Huff, I believe, were tasked with working with Assemblyman Fuentes on this bill. And if that kind of dialogue hasn't happened, it needs to. And because there are a number of unresolved issues in the bill. And I will, follow your lead, Mr. Chairman, today in voting to move the bill. I guess it goes forward to appropriations. And if it comes out of appropriations, it will come back to this committee so we can look at where the policy is.
Absolutely. It's my commitment that I've already told the author privately that those conversations with the senators must take place. Obviously, they're not just one meeting with them. I think he understands. There was just recently, none of these things could not have all been addressed yet. But I think, Assembly Member, you need to hear, while I think the message that you're hearing is while we are very supportive of what you're undertaking and that you move this forward, but there still are lots of, we want to come up with, if it is only going to be pieces, the right pieces now at this moment. And so, and you're not there yet, quite there yet. And so I don't know if that means that you should think through, even if this bill gets out today, whether how quickly you want to move this bill through, either this year or next year, or if you're ready to move it through this year. But you need to understand that this is, if it comes out of this committee, it's conditional at this moment.
It's absolutely crystal clear to me, Senator.
Yes, Senator Liu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just also want to just kind of weigh in. I appreciate the work you have done. I think you've laid a terrific ground, framework for teacher evaluation. You worked very hard on this issue. We do have not competing issues, but we do have something more holistic to talk about as we move forward. And when I came in here, I was not ready to, I was just going to pass on this bill until we continue to have those conversations. And I think I'm going to stay that way. But I do hope that, because I think the bill will get out of the committee, but I do hope that you will address some of the concerns that have been mentioned here, because I think they're very important concerns and substantive. I mean, it's not only about collective bargaining. It's about mandates. It's about costs. It's about timing. It's about a lot of things, not just the framework of the evaluation. So I know the conversation will go on. We'll have time to have input into this conversation, and I hope that we can get something that will be better for all of our kids.
Are there any other?
Happy to move the bill.
The bill's been moved by Senator Vargas. You've heard us. Would you like to close?
I feel like a contestant on The Voice. Thank you for the feedback. It's very, very important for me to make sure that we get this right. And while it may just be a modular components to an overall system, I think it's absolutely necessary that we figure out how to get the driver, if you will, put together in a place so that the rest of the system can work. I can well understand the concerns that the opponents had, and in some ways we've been able to move people from support to neutral, which tells me that we're making folks a little uncomfortable with all of the different changes that we're making. But I think we have to step out of our comfort zone a little bit, which leads me to my next point, that I'm absolutely happy to work with the committee staff, and certainly the members to try to figure out how to address all these other components as well. The issues of calibration, collective bargaining, ultimately professional development and cost are significant issues. I don't know that, we haven't had an opportunity to speak at greater length with Senator Liu here. I'm not sure if it's going to be done in one vehicle or two, but there has to be an integration of all of these, I think, concerns, or at least a real good try at getting most of those concerns allayed. I am absolutely committed to doing that. I think we have a good start here, and absolutely welcome the input and urge an aye vote. Thank you.
Will the Secretary please call the roll on AB 5 as amended?
Do pass as
Do
amended.
pass as amended.
To appropriations.
With the
Lowenthal.
understanding that at least my vote is to move it forward, but to bring this bill back before it gets to the floor.
Lowenthal.
Aye.
Lowenthal, aye. Runner. Alquist.
Aye.
Alquist, aye. Blakesley.
Aye.
Blakesley, aye. Hancock.
Aye.
Hancock, aye. Huff. Liu. Price.
Aye.
Price, aye. Semidian. Vargas.
Aye.
Vargas, aye. You have 6 votes.
That vote, you have sufficient votes for passage. We're going to place it on call for the absent
Very
members.
good. Thank you, members.
Assemblymember Mendoza, AB 86.
Mr. Chair, members, may I begin? We can, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, members, I'm here to present AB 86. AB 86 is a bill that would create a voice for classified employees and entitle them a seat at the table when charter schools are being established. But first, I want to, my pleasure to take some of the amendments that are recommended by the committee staff to substitute the term teachers for the term non-supervisorial certificated staff, and to delete the language that the charter school estimates will be employed in its first year of operation, and replace that with the language of currently employed.
So just to understand, you're taking the allowing all certificated staff of permanent status to participate, and technical amendments to clarify that the signatures required in the conversion to charters are half the teachers and classified employees who are currently employed at the school.
Did you say half the teachers?
It's half the certificates.
Pardon?
It'd be half the certificates.
And half the certificated, yeah.
Right. I think that's the one we. Yes, that's correct.
We will accept those as authors' amendments.
Okay. AB 86 requires that permanent classified employees and the ones just amended to be a participant when it comes to the petition process when they're starting a new charter school or when an existing public school is being converted into a charter school. Classified employees and others play an important role in our education system by assisting in special education classes with English language learners. They help ensure the safety of our kids and a variety of other essential duties. It is clear that the creation of a charter school will impact classified employees and others, and I believe that they should be given a voice in the process. This bill is being sponsored by Service Employees International Union and also supported by the California School Employees Association, AFSCME, and the California Charter Schools Association. We do have folks in support.
Witnesses in support.
Yes, Michelle Castro with the Service Employees International Union. This bill is not the same bill that was before you last year. It is truly a product of compromise to work out, previous concerns, remove opposition. So we ask for your aye vote, and I'd like to defer the rest of my time to Gama Andrade, who flew here from Los Angeles, and he is a classified school employee. Thank you.
Yes, good morning. My name is Gamaliel Andrade. But all the kids at Murchison Street Elementary, the school that I work at in East Los Angeles, call me Mr. A. I've worked in the cafeteria for about 7 years. I and my coworkers are a critical ingredient to school quality, providing sanitary restrooms, clean classrooms, graffiti removal, healthy food, safe and on-time bus rides, assistance in the classroom, and supervision on the playground. We have the great insight into what makes a school great, and our input into the decisions that we're making about our schools will improve the outcome. The bill finally gives classified employees a voice in this process. Nearly half of LAUSD's food service workers, custodians, and other classified employees are parents of school-age kids, and I'm a very active uncle myself. I pick up my niece from school every day, talk to her teachers just in case there's anything wrong, and I'm usually the first one who sees a report card when it's time to give those out. So when you put it in context, when you add those of us who are aunts, uncles, grandparents, you realize that we are a community being served by our local schools. And I urge you to support this bill. Thank you.
Other witnesses in support.
Mr. Chair and members, excuse me, Rand Martin on behalf of the California Charter Schools Association. We're actually very pleased to be up here in support of this bill after opposing it last year and opposing it earlier this year. We're very grateful to the author and to the sponsor for agreeing to amendments that we think make this a better bill, do provide a voice for classified employees in an appropriate way in the creation of a charter school. Thank you.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support.
Laura Preston with the Association of California School Administrators. I couldn't say it any better than Rand. We are very grateful to the sponsors and the author for taking our amendments and our concerns in mind, and we're now able to support.
Witnesses in support.
Joshua Golka with the California School Employees Association, also in support.
Thank you. Oh, yes. Are there any witnesses in opposition? I'd like to recognize also in the front row Senator Hart. Welcome to the committee.
Excuse me for being late, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Mitch Seaman, California Labor Federation, also in support.
Another support. Yes.
Eric Premack with the Charter Schools Development Center in opposition. We remain concerned about the bill. We believe that the petition process at the local level it was intended originally as a screen to keep essentially flaky petitions from burning up a lot of school district staff and board time, and it's become over time a little bit more of a popularity contest. We'd like to see the pendulum swung back to more of the original intent and have the petition process focus on the quality of the petition and the merits of the petition instead. So we remain in opposition and would urge you to reject the bill as you did a similar measure last year.
Thank you. Other witnesses in opposition? If not, bringing it back is Senator Price.
I want to thank the author and sponsors for working on this bill. I supported it last year, and so I'm happy to support the new and improved version this year. We'll move the bill and just reiterate how important it is to be inclusive in the process. And I think this does guarantee that all stakeholders have an opportunity to participate. So, thank you.
Are there any other members of the committee that wish to? Pardon, Senator Liu, is there a question?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. I wasn't paying attention, I guess. Did you accept the amendments?
Yes, he has accepted all the amendments that the committee has made, which in many ways modified the bill from where it was last year. Is there a motion?
Yes, Senator Price.
Senator Price has made a motion. Do pass as amended. Assembly member, would you like to close?
Respectfully ask for a vote. Appreciate the staff's help with the bill.
Thank you.
The motion is do pass as amended to appropriations. Lowenthal?
Aye.
Lowenthal, aye. Runner? Alquist?
Aye.
Alquist, aye. Blakesley? Hancock?
Aye.
Hancock, aye. Huff?
No.
Huff, no. Lou?
Aye.
Lou, aye. Price?
Aye.
Price, aye. Semidian? Vargas? Vargas, aye. Excuse me? Blakesley, no.
The bill has 6 votes sufficient for passage. We're going to place it on call for the absent members. I would like to, we're going to hear one more. I would like to mention that we're going to close the roll before we leave so we can get things done before. So if there are members out there that are not here, please be here before 10 o'clock because we're going to, those bills that are on call, we're going to lift the call at 10 o'clock. Next. Is it, where is Amia?
Is he here?
Oh, Bonilla.
Oh, Bonilla's here.
Yes, Assembly Member Bonilla. Oh, Amiano was here. Just squeeze you out. We go in fire order. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Chair and members, Assembly Bill 207 seeks to improve access to education by clarifying the types of documents that constitute as evidence of residency for K-12 students. Existing law only specifies a range of documents that can be used to meet residency requirements for school districts adjacent to the international border. Therefore, all school districts are not provided with specific guidelines on how to verify student residency. As a result, some school districts have imposed overly burdensome requirements on families to establish student residency. Families that may experience difficulty in providing documents to establish residency within a school district include families of victims of domestic violence, immigrant and low-wage workers, and the homeless. AB 207 provides clear guidelines to all school districts by identifying specific documents that reasonably show proof of residency. These documents include, but are not limited to, property tax payment receipts, rent contracts, leases, payment receipts, utility service contracts, pay stubs, correspondence from a government agency, or declaration of residency executed by a parent or guardian. This bill clarifies existing state and federal rights for immediate enrollment for homeless, unaccompanied youth and foster youth as defined under the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act. The bill also repeals Section 4A204.6 of the Education Code regarding proof of residency for schools on the international border as to provide consistency and prevent confusion on types of documents constitutes as proof of student residency for all school districts. In spite of compulsory education laws, many families experience difficulties enrolling children in school. AB 207 seeks to decrease barriers to school enrollment and allow all of California's children to have equal access to education by providing clear guidelines on the documents that constitute as proof of student residency. Here with me today to testify on the bill, Marta Salgos-Diaz with Californians Together and Liz Guillen with Public Advocates.
Witnesses in support.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Martha Zaragoza-Diaz, and I'm representing Californians Together as well as the California Association for Bilingual Education, and we support the bill. Assemblymember Amiano stated very well the purpose of the bill, and that's to clarify the documents that a school district can ask of a parent or guardian of a child or homeless child or unaccompanied youth, and establishing the fact that they do live within the area of the school that they want to enroll in. We think that it's a very simple, straightforward measure, and it does clarify some of the questions that have arisen in some of the districts throughout the state, and so we strongly support it. Thank you.
Other witnesses in support?
Mr. Chair and members, Liz Guillen with Public Advocates. We also support the bill in the current climate where families are being criminalized for issues around immigration, homelessness, domestic violence. It's a straightforward measure to allow them to submit documents that are very straightforward about where they live. And it goes a long way in making sure that all kids that need to be in school are in school. Thanks.
Other witnesses in support?
Jeanette Saripatin with the Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund, also in strong support for the reasons already cited.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Seth Bramble on behalf of the California Teachers Association. CTA supports really the elimination of all barriers that are created either through statute or through practice to allowing for equal access to all education opportunities. So for those reasons, we're in strong support.
Other witnesses in support?
Pam Bacilla on behalf of the San Francisco Unified School District with a supportive amended position. We absolutely support the intent to ensure that undocumented families can produce what they need to ensure that they live in San Francisco. We'd like to be able to add to the list of allowable documents to verify residency, so long as those documents are ones that undocumented families would possess.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support?
Good morning. Ronald Coleman with the California Immigrant Policy Center, also here in strong support.
Thank you. Are there witnesses in opposition? If not, let's bring this back before the members. Any questions? Is there a motion?
I would move the bill.
The bill's been moved by Senator Hancock. Assembly member, would you like to close? Oh, Senator Blakely.
A little slowly, Johan. I've had my coffee. Thank you.
I'm trying to race through before the session.
And I'll just make it real. What are the protections here with respect to potential fraudulent representation of being in District A versus District B? Obviously, that's an issue that we've talked about at great length, the degree to which parents can put their children in the district of their choice, and some people like that idea, some don't. But it's obviously an important and critical policy question. And I see one of the criteria that is allowable is a simple declaration of residency by the parent or guardian. Does this potentially open the door, whereas you are identifying one problem you're solving, is there another problem that would then occur, or are there protections I'm not reading in the bill?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. Actually, that is in the bill because of the homeless population, so it's particular to them only. Because of the situation of being homeless, there isn't a lot of other documents that they could present. So having a simple declaration of residency would be sufficient for that.
And I understand if that were, in fact, a homeless person making that representation, that may be their only opportunity. But what safeguards or protections do we have if someone fraudulently makes that representation so they can select any school of their choice to participate in?
As I understand it, there are mechanisms in place in all districts that would pursue any suspicion of fraudulent documents. And I know in San Francisco, if there is a question, that will be vetted by the deputy city attorney assigned to the school district. So those protections are there already. And those processes are already in place for verifying or establishing something that may be fraudulent with suitable penalties, which I would imagine would be not having access
Also, Senator, on page 3, lines 8 through 12, directly address this issue. I'll just say, if an employee of a school district reasonably believes that the parent or legal guardian of a pupil has provided false or unreliable evidence of residency, the school district may make reasonable efforts to determine that the pupil actually meets the residency requirements set forth in sections 48-200 and 48-204. Are there, I don't know if that answers it.
It answers my question. I'm not sure it fully addresses my concern, but I certainly appreciate the opportunity for the back and forth. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
The bill has been moved by Senator Hancock. Are there any other members that wish to address the author? If not, Assembly Member, would you like to close?
Given the time constraints, I would respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Well, thank you.
For consideration.
Will do pass? Secretary, please call the roll.
It's due pass to the Senate floor. Lowenthal?
Aye.
Lowenthal, aye. Runner? Alquist? Aye. Alquist, aye. Blakesley? No. Blakesley, no. Hancock?
Aye.
Hancock, aye. Huff?
No.
Huff, no. Lou?
Aye.
Lou, aye. Price?
Aye.
Price, aye. Smidian? Vargas?
Should we do?
We only have 5 minutes. Vargas is right outside.
Can you knock on the door? Senator Vargas said he wanted to vote on this bill and was standing right outside. He took a call. I know it's a little unusual, but I want to get these bills out before we go into session. We do things a little differently here. We're very consumer and senator oriented.
Thank you very much.
Aye.
Please do not ignore the man behind the curtain.
Thank you. That bill has 6 votes, sufficient now for passage. We're going to place it on call for a few minutes for the absent members.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I think we're going to have here one more bill by Assembly Member Bonilla, who's been patiently waiting, and then we're going to lift the call and go into session. And we'll do the consent calendar also. So don't leave. We're going to do the consent calendar, and we're going to lift the calls on the bills.
No, there's only been this is the third.
Assembly Member, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and
You're
members.
the last before our recess.
Yes, and thank you for squeezing me in, and hopefully this will be very direct and to the point. I'd first like to say that I accept the amendments suggested on page 2 of the committee analysis to clarify that excused absences for military dependents shall be granted at the discretion of the LEA superintendent. Every year we know that many military families are relocated, and what this bill is doing is really making it very clear, bringing law into alignment with the compact that was passed in 2009, that would clarify that, which was intended by the compact to ensure that military children are provided with excused absences when their immediate family members are being deployed or on leave from active duty. The bill guarantees military students are not penalized at school for their parents' commitment to the country. A quality education for military children is fundamental to the success of our military families and allows the armed forces to keep their families united.
I move the bill.
Bill's been moved by Senator Alquist. Are there witnesses in support? I don't know if Jerry is a witness or just kind of wandering through. A wanderer. Are there any witnesses in opposition? Members? Not hearing any questions of the oath. Would you like to close?
I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Bill has been moved by Senator Alquist as amended. Do pass as amended. Secretary, please call the roll.
Lowenthal?
Aye.
Lowenthal, aye. Runner? Alquist? Aye. Alquist, aye. Blakesley? Aye. Blakesley, aye. Hancock?
Aye.
Hancock, aye. Huff? Lou? Aye. Lou, aye. Price?
Aye.
Price, aye. Semidian? Vargas?
Aye.
Vargas, aye. 7.
Bill has 7 votes. We're going to place it on call just for a few minutes because we're going to lift the calls.
Thank you
now.
very
First,
much.
we're going to vote on the consent calendar.
Okay. She moved the consent. Lou.
Senator Liu has moved the consent calendar. Secretary, please call the roll.
Motion is due pass with the recommendation to consent. Lowenthal?
Aye.
Lowenthal, aye. Runner? Alquist? Aye. Alquist, aye. Blakesley? Aye. Blakesley, aye. Hancock? Aye. Hancock, aye. Huff? Huff, aye. Lou? Aye. Lou, aye. Price? Price, aye. Semidian? Vargas? Aye. Vargas, aye. That's 8 votes.
The consent calendar has 8 votes. The consent calendar is out.
Okay.
We're going to come back here later on. You can leave your stuff. Wait, we're going to lift the calls on item number 1, 2, 4, and 5.
Okay.
Lift the call on item number 1, AB 5, Assembly Member Fuentes. The present vote is
6-0. Chair voting aye. Runner? Huff? Lou? Semidian? 6-0.
Bill has 6 votes. That bill is out. Next one, AB 86, Assembly Member Mendoza.
The motion is due pass as amended to appropriations. The chair voting aye. Runner? Semidian? This vote is 6-2.
Bill has 6 votes. That bill is out. Next bill, item number 4, AB 207, Assembly Member Amiano.
The motion is due pass to the Senate floor. The chair voting aye. Runner? Semidian? 6-2.
Bill has 6 votes. That bill is out. And the final bill before we recess is Bonilla.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Didn't we just do that one? I'm sorry, 4. Sorry about that. AB 387, the motion is due pass as amended to the Senate floor. The chair voting aye. Runner? Huff?
Aye.
Huff, aye. Semidian? 8-0.
8-0, that bill is out. We are going to go into recess until we finish up our deliberations on the Senate floor. We're going into session now, and then as soon as that's over, we will come back here to the hearing. At this moment, we are now in recess.
Thank you.
Thank you.